It was a night like any other at the Grand Theater, with an audience full of excited whispers and the rustle of coats. The venue shimmered under the soft glow of chandeliers as the crowd eagerly awaited the performance of the night. But one person stood apart from the glittering spectacle, unnoticed by most, the blonde girl in the corner. Her name was Emma, a singer with a dream far larger than her current reality. She had been rehearsing for this moment for months, pouring her heart into each note. As the stage lights illuminated, the audience turned their eyes to the performers. Not knowing that this unassuming girl was about to change everything, her voice was a hidden treasure. A melody too pure for words. The music began, soft at first, as Emma stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the empty seat in the front row. The crowd fell silent, waiting. Emma's voice filled the theater, raw and powerful, but as she sang, a shadow of doubt passed over her face. She sang for the audience, but it was more than just a performance for her. It was a plea, an offering of herself in every breath. She didn't sing for fame, but for something deeper, a connection, a truth only music could reveal. With every note, she was shedding her fears, her insecurities, and her pain. Among the sea of faces, there was one man who had been absent from the spotlight for years. A billionaire named Nathaniel Blackwood, known for his vast fortune and cold demeanor, had long since stopped caring for the world around him. He had everything: wealth, power, and the respect of society, but at that moment, he was a man who had forgotten what it meant to feel. But something drew him to the theater tonight. His decision was made in the spur of the moment, driven by an impulse he could not explain. His arrival was unnoticed at first. He sat in the back, a shadow among shadows. Emma's voice cut through the air, hitting every note with a precision that left the audience spellbound. Nathaniel's eyes, cold as ice, softened for a brief second. He couldn't explain why he felt the way he did, but something about this girl, this performance, began to break through the fortress he had built around himself. The music soared as Emma hit the high notes, but despite the magic in the air, the theater was silent in its appreciation. Her performance was impeccable, but something was missing. The audience sat still, unmoved. The silence grew heavier. The applause that never came stung her more than she could have imagined. Her heart raced, and her voice faltered ever so slightly, but it was enough for the audience to catch the tremor. She pulled back, not out of fear, but out of heartbreak. She wasn't just singing for the applause. She was singing for something more, and it felt as though the universe was silent in return. Tears welled in her eyes as she held the final note, wishing for even a flicker of acknowledgement. The loneliness on stage was suffocating. Yet, from the corner of her eye, she saw him, the billionaire. Nathaniel's gaze was fixed on her, and something in his eyes softened. It wasn't pity. It wasn't even empathy. It was recognition of the loneliness that mirrored his own. The room was still, the tension palpable. Emma could feel the weight of the world in her chest, threatening to crush her. But then, something changed. It was as if Nathaniel's silent understanding unlocked something inside her. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of strength to continue. The song was no longer just about performance. It was about surrender. Surrendering her fears, her doubts, and her broken heart. She closed her eyes, letting the music flow freely from her soul. For the first time in her life, Emma wasn't trying to be perfect. She wasn't trying to impress. She was simply being, and the audience could feel it, the vulnerability, the truth that poured from her voice. Nathaniel, a man who had never been moved by anything, felt a lump form in his throat. His world, which had been full of concrete and cold ambition, suddenly felt hollow. He couldn't explain it. He didn't even want to try. He just felt as the last note echoed through the theater. Emma opened her eyes, expecting to see the same blank faces. Instead, there was a standing ovation, unexpected, overwhelming. The entire audience, including Nathaniel, had risen to their feet, but something in Nathaniel's chest had shifted. He wasn't clapping like the others, his hands trembled. He had experienced something he couldn't put into words. A crack had formed in his heart, and in that moment, for the first time in years, Nathaniel felt alive. He walked toward the stage, his footsteps heavy with emotion. Emma, confused and unsure, wiped her tears away, glancing at him from the edge of the stage. As Nathaniel reached the foot of the stage, their eyes met. The world seemed to pause, just for a second. Without a word, he reached up and placed a hand on her shoulder. She was still trembling, unsure of what was happening. But then, the unthinkable happened. Nathaniel Blackwood, the billionaire who had never shown emotion in front of anyone, cried. Not just a tear, but a flood of emotion. His face twisted in pain, his eyes filled with regret, loss, and something deeper, something raw. The crowd, seeing this moment, fell silent again. They had just witnessed the unthinkable, the hardened billionaire. The one who was never vulnerable, broken in front of everyone. His tears were not for himself, but for the girl who had somehow made him feel again. Emma stood still, unsure of what to do. She had never expected this, never dreamed of it. But there it was, the gift she had unknowingly given to Nathaniel. And in turn, the world. The crowd began to quiet, and Nathaniel's sobs echoed through the theater. He was no longer the untouchable billionaire, but a man who had been changed by a single performance. He wiped his face, nodding toward Emma as a quiet thank you. As the applause roared in, Emma realized the power of her vulnerability. Her willingness to sing, not just for the audience, but for herself. She had not only moved Nathaniel, but had changed the trajectory of both their lives. And as the night came to a close, Emma knew that this was only the beginning. Not of fame or fortune, but of a deeper connection to herself and to the world. Her song had not just filled the theater, but had reached beyond, touching lives in ways she couldn't yet understand.